Hello people. So I wanted to say something. I just have this idea going along in my mind a bit, or it's something that I've come to a conclusion from seeing endless Christian arguments online and getting a bit frustrated about it. This is my argument against biblical Christianity, but not Christianity. So if you've followed my channel, you might know that I am actually Christian in a sense, like I do believe what Christ said in the New Testament is all accurate. I believe that. And that's a big part because it was talked about in the Law of One and encouraged in the Law of One. There are other parts of the Bible that I don't believe are accurate, that I believe were deliberately mistranslated or whatever. But that's not really what this is about. I want to conduct a thought experiment. And I'll do this with a little bit of help from the Law of One, and a little bit of reference to things they've said, but that's really not the point. Since I won't be distinguishing between what was actually said in the Law of One and what I'm just making up as analogies or hypotheticals, that probably doesn't need to be considered. But imagine the pure vastness of the universe we're in. And even before we get to other planets, even before we get to space, even the infinity of complexity of everything around us. Like if I go down to the beach and the tide's out and I put my feet in the sand, there are little creepy crawlies around. There are a lot of things that are happening that are still just way beyond any scientific understanding we have. For instance, we know that sun just does unbelievable things to our bodies. We know that sun grows all the plants. So when the sun goes on the sand, is there an effect there? When the sun goes into the water, is there an effect there? There probably is, and we probably don't have the faintest idea of what is actually going on. There is an infinity of complexity in even the most basic thing. And against this, we really don't know much about the world. We really don't know much about anything. Recently, I was given a lesson in how ill-equipped I am physically to defend myself, to be masculine and all that kind of stuff. I had a little bit to drink. I very rarely drink. I just had wine with communion, which I started to do for a while when I got sick of the non-alcoholic. So I was a little drunk, and the dog, who is always pestering us for affection, and I hadn't stroked him for a few days, I really enjoyed stroking the dog. So he got up on my bed, which he loves to do, and I roughed him up and I stroked him and I lay next to him, and I was just in a good mood. And I must have tipped him off. I must have upset him in some way. I must have shown a lack of caution or fear, as I normally do when I haven't drunken anything. He took it the wrong way, and he looked at me, lunged at me, and after that barked at me. That was quite a dangerous situation. He's not an English dog. He's a very tough dog. He is not bred as an English dog, so he doesn't have the softness. He's still a bit of a wolf. And he had lunged at me across a few feet before I could physically move my arm. I hadn't moved it. And he managed to get a tooth mark about an inch or centimetre below my left eye. And that sent me into a bit of confusion, or not confusion, but it reaffirmed to me that I'm not as tough as I thought I was. Now, in my mind, if the dog was to ever attack me, I'd be able to, push against him, defend myself, strangle him, whatever. But that is not true. He's an animal. And it's only because every day he chooses not to kill me that I'm not dead. And I think this extends to so many of our interactions. We know so little about a lot of people. We know more about humans, I think, because they communicate. But we just don't really know. But let's not stop there. Let's go out even further. The universe that we can see, that we are at least told we can see. I'm not going to go into maybe it's all lies, flat earth, anything like that. We're going to assume that what we've been told is the truth. The universe is unbelievably huge. We know that the sun itself is billions of Earths in size. And we're one of the smallest solar systems. You go a few billion light years here or there, and you'll find another massive, ginormous sun that is like Earth is to our sun is to that sun. The absolute enormity of that is impossible to comprehend. Just imagine in every planet in that solar system, that other solar system, I'm sure there are entities. I'm not going to pretend to only go by what the scientists have told us. There is definitely entities. Aliens, extraterrestrials. And it's not like there's two galaxies in the world we live in. Every single one of these galaxies has impossible amounts of planet. Every single one of those planets will have an ecosystem of sorts, but it will be filled with plants and things that we cannot comprehend. It will have different minerals. It will have different entities, some of which work in ways that we can't comprehend. And there are billions of galaxies. There are billions of stars within a galaxy, and then there are billions of galaxies. And not only that, we are assuming everything we can see is all there is. Or we're not even assuming. For a conversation, we're assuming. But one of the theories that I think is partially backed up by the law of one, it's not precisely clear, is that black holes feed through and create entire other galaxies. So everywhere where there's black holes, and they're dotted all over the place, that goes through and creates an entire new universe. And not only that, from the law of one perspective, we are living in a system of 8 octaves, and then there is one above us, there is one below us. So that's just made it exponentially bigger when it was already impossible to comprehend. So after all this unbelievable intelligence that was needed to create all these things, to create all these suns, to create every single mineral, every single entity, every single drop of water and atom on every single planet, why, when we are trying to describe an intelligence like that, do we think that because some hillbilly in the South has read a book that's about 3,000 pages, that person has any clue what this ginormous thing that we're living in doesn't want any of it? It boggles the mind. The arrogance. So I am a Christian. In a sense, I follow those beliefs, those teachings, I pray. But that is an act of faith. I can't be sure that what is going on in the grand scheme of things. Everything we're told, we don't have the tools in almost every case to determine its validity or truth. If an entity of unbelievable power spoke to someone, told them loads of things in the Bible, then we only know that an entity of more power than that human being was talking to them. Every angel that we deal with that speaks to us through the law of one or wherever is themselves a tiny, tiny piece of this grand puzzle, and they may easily have an entity above them that is capable of deceiving them. And that's not likely. I don't feel personally that is likely. But I think the idea of believing that you know this or that from the Bible is crazy. It's just crazy. There is more I kind of want to say, but I think that thought is very powerful. I will just slip in a small bit here. I've been reading a fiction book where 2 things were done very well. The first thing that was done very well is that real life was done very well. So the way people relate, the gritty real life absolute grind of dealing with difficult and abusive personalities, the infuriating, strange efficiency, in a sense, of bureaucracy and how badly it can screw up. All of the human stuff was done well. And then another thing that was done well was, in this show there is an alien device, and it's not a person, it's a kind of fungus. It's a kind of super fungus. And there are a lot of scenes where people are simply realizing that the power of this stuff is beyond them. So one great quote was where one of the senior politicians is reading reports that they are getting on this fungus and what it's doing, and she says, "There's no point in reading this because I don't understand it any more than a reptile understands the World Cup." And in a sense, that is an analogy that I think is very powerful about a lot of what we see in the world. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that, and thanks for listening.